Welcome to the Soulful Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Analisa Leaming, Broadway actor turned coach for big dreamers. This is a show about choosing to live inside out, becoming sourced from within, and then acting upon your deepest longings. From starting your dream business to starring on Broadway, from sacred activism to being a radiant, aligned parent and everything in between, we will walk the razor's edge of these two seemingly contradictory words, soulful ambition. This podcast is here to awaken the longing in your chest that is so big it threatens to swallow you whole. Because the manifestation of your true desires is your destined path and the medicine and the magic that the world needs. This is Soulful Ambition. Hello, welcome back to Soulful Ambition. I'm excited to be here today. I am tuned in, tapped in, and turned on. I am so curious. I'm so curious and I'm just going to use that word. I'm so curious about the fact that the last episode I shared, which you've not listened, I highly recommend listening because it's a personal story. But I'm so curious about the fact that it is one of the most engaged with episodes I've ever shared on this podcast. Both A Balancing Act and now Soulful Ambition, almost 100 episodes. It really struck a chord with a lot of people rooting me on, people sharing their stories with me, people inspired by the courage to both open up and share so vulnerably, also the courage to take these big risks that I'm taking, to make some big changes, to just move forward, that forward momentum. It's been such a joy to connect with on Instagram, email, voice notes, texts, with all of you. So thank you. Thank you for your response, for taking the time. Our lives are also full. And every time I hear from one of you, it really means a lot because there are a million things you could be doing with your time, and that you stopped to message me. It feels so good because podcasting you can be in this void. I'm standing here right now in my bedroom at my desk, talking to my computer. So it feels so good to connect. Thank you. I decided to do a short, sweet episode today, pulling out 3 things from that episode as kind of like, okay, so 3 keys, 3 signs to know that you are on the path of your soulful ambition, or to support you. Like 3 keys, these 3 things, if you're doing them, if you are living them, then you're likely on your truest path, or you're finding your truest path. And so this is from thinking back to that episode. What are 3 things that I would pull out? And then also the opposite of them. Like, where in my life am I living in the opposite of those things? Because it's not one or the other. It's not black and white. It's not linear. So kind of like looking at that, both in my own life, I can think of this, and also my clients, like seeing the ones that are just so clear and on their path and living kind of more of their truest, authentic self versus ones that are maybe struggling more because they're stuck in some of these areas. So I'm seeing this not only in my life, but in the lives of a lot of others. So before we do that, quick note that there is still a spot available for the Soulful Ambition Circle that we will be starting August 12th. If you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, you've been talking about this for a while, I'm in. What do I do? There's a link below wherever you're listening to this, and you can just read the page on my website about it and hit apply. And that just gives me an idea. You'll get to share with me what you're looking for support in, and I'll know, oh yeah, this is the perfect place for you. Or I'll be like, oh my gosh, that's not what we do here, which I think you'll know if you listen to this podcast. But I just always want to be really real. I don't want just anybody here because I want your money. That is not the case. I want to support you if I think that this is the group and the place that can. So that's what that application is about. It's not like, will you make the cut kind of an application. I would love to have you, if this is speaking to you, a place to support you with community, with practices to live your truest destiny, your life, your sacred path, your soulful ambition. That's what we're going to be doing for the next 5 months, August through the end of the year. I'm going to say this too. I shared in a previous podcast kind of like what the anatomy of that group is looking like. And it is looking like female bodied people in their 30s and 40s, kind of later part of the 30s, most of us, not always, not all. And many of us have children, not all. Most of us are partnered. So we're just at a certain stage in our life. And some are coming back to performing like hardcore. Some are have other creative expressions that they're ready to expand. All of us wanting to do this in the most soulfully aligned way. So if that is not you, but you're curious about doing group work together, I have this idea and I'm sharing it here first. I have this idea maybe September of starting a second group of the Soulful Ambition Circle, and it being geared more towards maybe slightly younger demographic, not necessarily, but I do think maybe your career is like front seat. You're maybe not also balancing family, like you are full throttle auditioning or writing or going after your biggest, wildest dreams. And that's just like front seat. And you want to do that in the most authentic way without the masks, integrating the fears, integrating little self, working the shadow stuff that comes up along the way, working the belief that it's possible. It's a huge one. And doing it with others in a group setting, which I'm just thoroughly enjoying. And a lot of you will be in New York City. Not the case for everybody. I'll still pair people up to be in groups with people across the world, across the country. But there's also that possibility for the city that you're in. Maybe there's more of you and you could meet up in person. So if that is speaking to you, I don't have a like a landing page for that yet. I'm just saying it here. So shoot me a message on Instagram, my email, my website, and just go, Analisa, that group, if you start it in September, I want to know more. I'm so in, etc. I would love to support you. Okay, let's dive in. I want to dive into these three things. These three, let's say like, I want to say like the framework. If you live, I really believe that we choose our own adventure. So if you're choosing these as like the rules for the game of life, it's kind of the framework that I want to take for these. Because you don't have to do them. There are other ways. They're not the only way. But let's look at these as like the game of soulful ambition. And I want to play with these rules. If you're playing by these rules, these beliefs, these knowings, I 100% believe that you are finding yourself on your truest, most authentic path, which is what our soul is longing for. So the first one is you just know that you can't fail. There's no failure. You're not worrying about if I choose this, then it means that I've failed because I've let go of that. You know that I think this is a huge indicator of where we are with that. Like whatever the thing is that we are most longing for, like I used to do this as a singer. Okay, if you lost your voice for good, if you could no longer sing, then what? And having this full understanding of like, I'm still this whole human being. I cannot, that wouldn't even be a failure. Of course, there'd be grief and loss. There's disappointment when we don't, achieve the things that we want to achieve, but that's not a failure. And so the flip side of that, and what I see a lot hindering people from moving forward, from enjoying the journey, is this idea of like, if I don't achieve this, if this doesn't happen, what does it mean about me? I am not enough. Something here is broken. I am flawed. So it's a sign to me that you're really enmeshed with ego. There's conditioning there. Maybe there's trauma there. There's so many reasons and things. And we don't have to uncover all of them, though it could be insightful or helpful. But I also don't think that it's completely necessary to uncover what happened at 6 and 10 and, go through the talking of all of that. I digress. if you think of it as a personal failure, I just think it is a great indicator that your ego is in the driver's seat right now. And there is no judgment there. It happens to all of us on a daily basis. We awaken to that and we're aware of it. And we're like, oh, like wake up call. Okay, I don't want my ego to be driving this bus. So then what is? And then that can guide us into that place and those questions of who am I really? What am I really? And when you connect with that truer self, higher self, whole self, and you're like, oh my gosh, the idea of failing, that's crazy. The soul would never think like I failed. My wisest self, the universe, would never look at that human as a failure. So me thinking in that way and living in that framework really stunts my growth, my expansion. And what can I be doing, listening to, reading, what groups, what would be supportive for me to start to kind of like rewire, unlearn, let go of that. So that's the first one. The second one is that you're making decisions. You're not getting stuck, right? Doesn't necessarily mean every decision is easy, but if you're on your path, or a key to being on this path is like you make decisions, you take risks, you trust yourself to do these things. So the opposite of that I see so frequently is this being stuck in indecision. This belief that there's a right way. They're like right, like quotes, right way. This is good. This is bad. This is societally acceptable. This isn't, right? Like financially, this is the right decision. Sometimes our truest, like next step defies all of it. And that's what I shared that got such a reaction to people, is this reel that I made of me like taping up a box and like sharing on Instagram that we're moving. And I was like, when the decision makes no sense on paper, but you do it because you know in your core. And I think a lot of times the decisions lead us into uncertainty and the unknown. And it's so easy to choose our comfort zone. And we'll settle for things, even though it's not really what we want. It's not our best life, but it's safe. We know, at least we know, like, what we don't like about it, as opposed to potentially taking the risk of this other thing that just might be awful and might not work out at all. Like the decision to have children. Let's go big with this, right? The decision to move out of the town that you're in and make a big change, changing career paths, leaving a relationship, like big things. Or just like constantly waffling between should I, shouldn't I, and trying to map out all the things that could go wrong to keep ourselves safe. So I think the people that are closest to living this authentic path and what it is like our soul, all of our souls want, is there's this like trust in your own strength and resilience. No matter what, I will be okay. I will have my back. I will have my own back. I will not berate myself for making the wrong decision. I won't live in regret. I'll think, okay, that wasn't it. What now? And yes, like I'm painting over it. If you listen to my last podcast, like there were lots of ups and downs in all of it and excruciating pain and fear. But at the end of the day, making that decision to move forward is like following my gut. I'm trusting myself. Another key to that is knowing that nothing is permanent. You know, at any moment, I could decide, let's move back to New York City and get back into my performing career. Me deciding to leave all of that, one of the keys to being able to do that and follow something that was lighting me up more was the knowledge that I can go back whenever I want. Or I can pick this up in the city that I'm in. Like, it's not linear. So it doesn't necessarily even have to be this big, like I'm letting this thing go. We can do this in relationships. We can let each other go and trust that we'll find each other again if we're meant to. if we're both, devoted to this authentic, soulful path. Okay. And the last one is, this is a major key, is that more often than not, you are living in the land of possibility. You're living in the land of possibility, or you're devoted to living in the land of possibility. So maybe you're not, but you're aware that you're not. You're aware that you're in a place of limiting beliefs and, will this really happen? I want it, but I don't know how. But I am devoted. This was me the last 6 months because I wasn't like 100% certain, but I've always been devoted to, but how can it work out for my highest good and the highest good of all? And I just like, this is just this like inner trust that, that it just will. And that if it's not, then it's not the end. And that's like a famous quote somewhere, right? But I live that and I believe that. Like, I'm not just going to settle. I moved here. I bought this big, beautiful home that looks like a storybook ending. She's changed careers and had babies and now lives in this beautiful, large home and lived happily ever after. But I didn't. And it would be so easy to stay because moving right now, I'm moving in 9 days. With 2 tiny humans, we're moving to a smaller home, an older home. It's not nearly as nice. Like, let's see what else. Like, there are all these reasons not to, and it's hard. I'm trying to pack up boxes, and my littlest one wants to be held all of the time, and he screams at me if he's not being held, and like holds onto my leg, and I literally cannot walk around. And so it's like I pick him up, my back is killing me. So it's like, this is not fun. This is not fun. But I do trust that where we're going, right? Like, this is a contraction in the birthing of the new, and it's painful. And yesterday I said to myself, I was like, this is not hard, Analisa. Like, living in a war zone is hard and awful. And finding out that you have a terminal illness is hard and awful. And having a sick child, like a really sick child, is hard enough. Losing a child is hard enough. This is not hard and awful, Analisa. Let's go. Pack the boxes, pick up the screaming baby, or give him a pacifier or a snack, and like keep going. Living in the land of possibility. I kind of veered off a little bit from that. There's this thing of like actually being devoted to enjoying the process, or being, here it is, like being fully in integrity with your values and beliefs in the process. So like, even when it's really hard and I don't necessarily have the evidence that it's going to work out, I'm going to keep using this word. Like, I'm devoted to being as present as I can, being as loving towards myself and my family as I can. Finding the joy, finding pleasure, finding some light moments, the brevity in these moments. This is life. It's messy and unknown and risky and frustrating and beautiful and fun and silly and like not. So I think like the opposite is, we're stuck in this belief that that thing out there will make us happy. And so it's like we turn off our life force on a daily basis until we get the thing. And I think when we live in that place deep down, a lot of us don't believe the thing is actually going to happen. Can you feel the hell that is on this earth in yourself? Like, and we all do this in different, I have this in another area in my life that I'm working on. I'll share when I'm a little further along. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just, we don't just shame ourselves when we wake up to this within ourselves. It's like, ooh, this is the work site. This is where I get to lean in. This is where I get to grow up this part of myself that is so conditioned by society and the commercials and the ads that are like, once you do this, then you'll feel this. We've been sold that. There's no shame. There's no judgment. We're asking ourselves to accept all of it, the cellulite, the meltdowns, the tantrums, the grief of letting go of something without making those things bad. We're growing our capacity to be in discomfort in a society that is like everything you can have on demand right now for your pleasure. It's like we got odds stacked against us here. We got dopamine hit after dopamine hit. And so then to ask ourselves to sit in the unknown, in the uncertainty, in the pain of letting something go, even though we know it's right, in the day-to-day hard of being on dating websites and like having people ghost you. But you're like, I am determined to meet the person. And so I'm going to go through this. It's not fun. But like, where is that's where we find our resiliency and our strength. And then we go, but I want to be congruent. I want to be in alignment and integrity with the part of me that is this whole self, that is divine and radiant and wild and fun and messy and angry and resentful. And it's all welcome here and it's all part of the journey. And I think the more that we can accept that, we build the capacity to do these things, to leap, to take risks, to do something knowing I might fall flat on my face, but like I'm still here. I've got me. And that here's what I'll end with. And that if we believe that our deep longings are sacred, then they are the roadmap. They are the blueprint, the inner whispers like God just longing for community, creative expression, deep partnership and companionship. These are things I'm longing to express through this human body and to experience in this life. And so they're sacred and I want to honor them. I'm not going to dim them. I'm not going to squelch them and choose comfort and choose what I know. And I can't fail because if I keep following that, I will keep coming back to it. Yeah, I get off path. I literally shared in the last episode how far I got off path, off track. But if that is my compass and that's what I'm devoted to, I'll come back. I have no doubt I will keep coming back. And I know that for you too. I know that for you. And so if you're listening to this and this all sounds great, but here's the thing, if your identity knows the other thing, like the opposite to all of these, and that's what you've been practicing over and over and over, you need support. You need places to support and watching people, like having real examples in your life of people who are taking risks and living in the unknown and living more congruently with their whole true self. Find it. Surround yourself in those people, because then that will become more and more and more a part of your identity. And if you're like, where, Analisa, then join the Soulful Ambition Circle, because this is what we are doing. Like every session, 2 times a month and beyond, because we're meeting beyond that too. So learn more, go to the website, message me. We'll set up a call. We can have a conversation. We can voice message each other on Instagram. I love to do that. If you have a question, yeah, your deepest longings are so important. And to get to parse apart where our ego is enmeshed in those longings is a part of the game. Oh, it's humbling and it's beautiful and it's hard. And to get to do that with others and get to see that in others, beautiful mirrors for ourselves. To hold others is actually a gift, to support others in that way, and then to allow others to support you and see your highest self. It actually, even when you're not in the group or surrounded by community like this, it affects how you think. Just last night, I was cooking dinner and I wanted to choose the old way, the default way of being reactionary to the stress and the, oh, this is all too much, and the overwhelm. And I felt the support of my community. And I then felt like, oh, you are more than this, Analisa. You have this. Dig deep within your well to be in this kitchen right now, cooking food, screaming babies, mountains of things to do, to be love, to be anchored in. And that is like my deepest longing right now, is to be in integrity as much as I can all the time with my highest self. And I would love to support you, or to continue to support you, whether it's just through this podcast, through Instagram, the emails that I send, or the Soulful Ambition Circle. So check it out. I adore you. I send you so much love on your journey to finding your truth and your path. I'd love to hear from you. As always, if you share this episode with a friend, or subscribe, give me a subscribe or a rating or a review, that is like tips for a podcaster, and so deeply appreciated. I will see you next time right here on the Soulful Ambition podcast.